Hello and welcome back to the Glenscope channel. Today we're looking at the fleeting truth of the gun debate. There's been a lot of movement on what is actually going on. We have daylight shootings in Toronto. We have the Liberals banning guns on May 1st. We have Mounties in Kelowna dragging people on their faces. Everything is just going crazy in the US. And we have a brand new study on the Canadian firearms legislations over the last 30 years. We're all going to be taking a look at all of that in the next few minutes, so we'll try to condense that down. We're going to start off with this article from 2019. Police chiefs say handgun ban wouldn't stop the flow of weapons into Canada. They call it naive. The Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, which is basically all the chiefs of police making that consensus, won't be supporting a call for a ban on handguns, despite concerns about gun violence in a number of major cities, including Toronto. Vancouver Police Chief Adam Palmer, who heads the organization, says Canada already has strong firearms regulations and that no other law is required. Toronto Mayor John Tory has been asking the federal government for quite some time to ban handguns, but instead they ban long guns, which are like 1% of the actual issue right now. And that doesn't even include the legal ones. It's much smaller if you include the legal ones. Palmer says in a majority of these cases involving gun violence, these handguns being used are already illegal, and it makes no sense to ban something already prohibited. Quote, in every single case, there are already offenses for that. They're already breaking the law, and the criminal law in Canada addresses all those circumstances, Palmer said Wednesday in a conclusion of the association's annual conference. We're just going to skip ahead here because he also went on to say Palmer suggested that handguns would still be around even with a ban because of Canada's proximity to the United States. We do share the longest undefended border in the world. Most of it doesn't even have a fence on it. With the advent of drones, there's almost no risk to actually do anything. I don't know how you would ever stop that kind of issue. People can't be naive to the realities of how it works with organized crime and smuggling, he said. There will always be an influx of guns from the United States into Canada. Heroin is illegal in Canada too, but we have heroin in Canada. And it goes for weed. Weed is legal in Canada now, but the illegal weed sales still dwarf anything the legal sales has. It's kind of ridiculous we would ever consider the government to actually enact a effective method because they can't seem to handle either. And we've been warned about this for many years. Influx of smuggled guns make it easy to get one in Toronto. Crime specialists. This is from 2018. Again, from 2018, getting crime guns in Toronto can be as easy as sending a text message. Getting rid of them is much harder. Although this guy has terrible trigger discipline. That is just horrific. This is a Glock 19, and Glock 19s in Canada must have extended barrels or they are prohibited devices because their barrel is too short. This barrel is prohibited. So it would need to be about another centimeter longer for this to be a legal gun in Canada, by the way. That's how crazy our laws are, by the way, is that this is illegal, but a slight increase in barrel length, that's okay. Now, we have to get into the topic of trust. This is from New Zealand, and this just came out on the 16th of June. It was found out recently that a new report claims police wrongly granted firearms license to the Christchurch killer, which is crazy if you think about it. They basically gave him a gun license and they let him have legal guns because the police didn't follow the rules. They didn't do the background check and they didn't call his references. If the police don't do their job, how are more laws going to be effective? It makes no sense. And it's getting even crazier in the US. They had 75 people injured in over 55 shootings. That's more than one person a shooting. Because the police cannot simply keep up. They are overwhelmed with the amount of calls, and that is coming north. And let's just take a quick look at this study, which is just published June 18th, 2020. And I will leave a link in the description if you want to take a look at the whole thing. It is insanely detailed. Effect of firearms legislation on suicide and homicide in Canada from 1981 to 2016. And again, this is a peer-reviewed study. This is not your average journal article. Conclusions. The finding of an association between unemployment, low income rates, and rates of Aboriginal population and provinces with higher rate of suicide underscores and suggests areas for directed public health and harm reduction programs. No overall mortality reduction, but a shift from suicide by firearm in females and males age 45 and older to hanging associated with current gun control programs was found. This suggests that gun control methods to reduce suicide by firearm may have benefits, but further actions to reduce suicide by controlling for other methods and suicide prevention programs could lower suicide rates in Canada. That is very, very important. We have a lot of legislation, and it doesn't seem to impact the suicide rates at all. If they don't have access to a firearm, they can use other methods. That's exactly what happens with illegal guns. They can't get the legal guns, so they just get the smuggled guns. It doesn't stop them from getting a gun. The last line is extremely telling as well. No associated reductions in homicide with increasing firearms regulations suggest alternative approaches are necessary to reduce homicide by firearm. Basically, the last 30 years of legislation saved nobody. Nobody was actually saved by the legislation. All the effort, all the billions of dollars amounted to naught. There was no effect. If we had nothing, the same number of people would have died. If we had more or the same number of people would have died. And I want to bring it home to that last point. So I have to talk about responsibility. Who do you want keeping you safe? Because I mean that honestly. That's an honest question. Who are you expecting to keep you safe? We live in an extremely different world. I mean, you saw in the previous article, like the police are overwhelmed in the US. In Canada, it's not that much better. There is systemic bias, which has been acknowledged by the RCMP commissioner. Another issue is lack of training. Many overuses of force. Case in point, Kelowna Mountie seen in shocking wellness video has been placed on administrative leave. She went to check to see if she was okay. She ended up arresting this nursing student. She then dragged her on her face while handcuffed with her hands up above her back and dragged like a mop down a hallway. Now, if I called 911, this is not the kind of response that I am expecting. And that's probably shocking to a lot of people. People are even calling to disband the RCMP, which I think is a step too far. I think there is a happy medium between total society breakdown and ensuring that police get better training and better selection process. Riots and protests are also taking up a significant portion of police resources. So if you dial 911 and you are expecting a response time of five minutes, what if it's 15 minutes? What if it's longer? What if they don't come? You need to answer that question responsibly on your own. No one can answer it for you. And to sum up, police have said that new laws won't change anything. And a 30-year study on the Canadian laws said that they were ineffective and they saved nobody. So where do we put our trust? It's really hard to answer that question because the police have been exposed to the events of the US that they are undertrained and they have tendencies to over-escalate situations or possibly fail to act in situations like Nova Scotia. So maybe we're looking in all the wrong places. Maybe it's no longer time to put our faith in the government because it seems to be misplaced. Maybe it's time to look inward. Maybe it's time to look for that inner strength, that inner Canadian strength, which I know everyone has. And as Chief Adam Palmer put it, it's time to stop being naive about the situation. Canadians, it's time to stand up. Thank you all for watching. I'll be back in the next one.